The brain plays a significant part in controlling a lot of things that happens in the body, actually most things in the body. And in the center of the brain, we learned about the pituitary gland. Now the pituitary gland makes a hormone called TSH, and in this video we're going to look at the interaction between the pituitary gland and the thyroid gland and how it is responsible for controlling homeostasis. Now, if you forgot, homeostasis is actually the body's process of maintaining a stable internal environment. Remember, we said that the body doesn't like change. So in this video, we're going to specifically look at how TSH and thyroxine, these two hormones, control your metabolic rate. In other words, wanting to try and keep the metabolic rate stable. And in case you forgot, metabolic rate is just the rate at which every chemical reaction in the body takes place. So there's the same slide as we saw just now, and right there in the middle of the brain, you can see the pituitary gland. Now the pituitary gland secretes a hormone called TSH. Now TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. Now this hormone TSH is going to travel in the bloodstream towards the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland is then going to be stimulated to make its own hormone called thyroxine. Now, why is this important? Well, thyroxine is the hormone that regulates the body's metabolic rate, or basal metabolic rate. Basal just means resting. It's made by the thyroid gland, as we said. It's easy to remember. Thyroid gland makes thyroxine, and thyroxine actually influences how quickly the body uses its energy and makes proteins. So it also affects bodily functions like how your heart beats, how fast your heart beats, or how fast you digest your food, even how your brain functions and how you develop. Now the pituitary gland is going to react in a specific way when thyroxine levels are low. So if you don't have enough thyroxine levels, thyroxine hormone in your blood, obviously your metabolic rate is going to be too slow. Now the pituitary gland is going to detect this and release this hormone called TSH. And the green arrow shows you how the pituitary gland secretes this hormone TSH and how it travels to the thyroid gland, where it actually stimulates the thyroid gland to produce and release its own hormone called thyroxine. Now, as the thyroxine levels increase, the metabolic rate is also going to increase. That means that thyroxine moves throughout the blood vessels and increases the metabolic rate throughout the body. Your heart rate increases, you breathe faster, you digest your food faster. But the cool thing is that thyroxine also travels back to the pituitary gland itself through the blood vessels. And this is what we call a feedback mechanism. So in this way, information on whether there's too little or too much thyroxine is actually fed back to the source or to the pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland is going to detect this. And then what happens if your thyroxine levels eventually end up being too high is that the pituitary gland again is going to detect it, but then reduce the release of TSH. And because there's now less TSH, there's less TSH stimulating the thyroid gland, the production and the release of thyroxine from the pituitary gland is actually going to cease, and that will slow the metabolic rate.